From the Ear to There Travel Studio, this is the Ear to There Disney Podcast.
The Ear to There Podcast, it's time to start the show. Be sure to hold on tight, here we go. Exploring all the different Disney destinations. Ear to There, it's time to start the fun.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There Disney Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Gramlich. I am also the owner and the founder of Ear to There Travel, which is, of course, a Disney specialized travel agency. It is my job, along with all of the vacationers on the Ear to There Travel team, to take away all that stress, all that anxiety, and all that time that it takes to plan a Disney trip, so you can focus on the really, really fun things like having a phenomenal time with your family and friends and enjoying the magic. You can listen to this podcast, meet everyone on the Ear to There Travel team, or request your free, no obligation quote over at eartotheretravel.com. Now, just a reminder that currently Walt Disney World is accepting reservations beginning on June 1st. So June 1st, 2020 is when they are accepting bookings for. That I have no inside information that the parks will be open, that the resorts will be open at that time. I am in the same boat with you guys. Disney doesn't reach out, unfortunately, to me to give me any inside info, and they don't reach out to anyone else. So if you have a friend or an individual who is saying they know when Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Disney Cruise Line is going to open back up, they don't. Nobody knows. Just so you know, we are all kind of in this waiting game together. But I will tell you what, once they do open, once the parks are open, the resorts are open, I am on the first plane or jumping in my car, and I am there. My family and I are supposed to be in Walt Disney World right now, along with, I'm sure, many of you who are listening to this. The world is going to need a lot of Disney magic when this whole thing is over. And I will be here, we will be here, Ear to There Travel will be here, and we will help you navigate everything new and old once the parks are open, once the resorts are open, the cruise line, Aulani, Universal Orlando. Don't tell anybody I said that. Universal Hollywood, all those places. So, all right, business, that's enough business talk. Let's talk about this week's Walt Disney World Word of the Week. This week's Walt Disney World Word of the Week is brought to you by the letter L. L for lantern. So you may be saying to yourself, all right, Phil, you're going to talk about the floating lanterns from Rapunzel. And if that's what you thought, you were sadly mistaken, because I will not be talking about those on this show. Although, let me get this out there, and this is a total aside, and I do this on the show a lot, so I apologize in advance. But can we get an attraction or a show for Rapunzel in the park somewhere? Can we, Disney, are you listening? Can we get a Tangled show? I don't need a dark ride. I don't need you to spend $1 gazillion building me a new land. All poor Rapunzel, all poor Tangled has are restrooms. Really, really, bathrooms. That's what we have. Listen, Disneyland has a little Tangled show. And my kids and I saw it last and Amy and I saw it in August, and it was great. It's so cute. Yes, I said cute. It's a really fun show, very funny. Mother Gothel is played by a musician. It's really, really funny. Flynn and Rapunzel are in the show, but everything else is played by these two characters. One's a pianist, one's an actor on stage. So he plays like Mother Gothel, and he plays the king and queen, and it's really funny. Listen, it's, you know who they're kind of like, the royal historians of Arendelle, how they tell the story, but with a little pop culture references and a lot of humor. It's like that. So Disney, listen. We have, I know everything is halted construction, but I know you're having meetings. You have some time. Let's get Flynn Rider or Eugene Fitzherbert and Rapunzel an attraction, or excuse me, I lost my voice there for a second. An attraction or a show. Let's do it. Come on. All right. Anyway. Man, this is going to end up going long. So the lantern that I am talking about is not from Tangled or anywhere near the Rapunzel bathrooms. But to give you the story of the lantern, we have to go back in time. I love that. We have to go back in time to the 1960s. And a lot of this story can be found in Jim Korkis's book, Secret Stories of Walt Disney World, Things You Never Knew You Never Knew. And there's a lot of really, really good stories in that book, so you should check that out. But in the 1960s, Walt Disney had just passed away, and his brother Roy O. Disney was standing in the marshes, in the fields of what would become Walt Disney World. He had then decided that he was going to postpone his retirement, and he was 73 years old at this time. But he decided, listen, I'm going to postpone my retirement until Walt Disney World is completed. He actually got a group of Disney's top executives together in a room on the Disney studio lot, and he told them, we're going to finish this park in Florida, and we're going to do it just the way Walt wanted it. Don't you ever forget it. I want every one of you to do just exactly what you were going to do when Walt was alive. So we really owe most of what Walt Disney World is and what it was when it first opened to Roy O. Disney, Walt's big brother. And there are some tributes to Roy O. Disney in the parks. In Magic Kingdom, in Town Square, of course, is the Sharing the Magic statue that was sculpted by Disney legend Blaine Gibson, and it features Roy O. Disney and Minnie Mouse sitting on a bench. There is also the plaque by the flagpole, which is the dedication to Walt Disney World that was read by Roy O. Disney on the dedication day. So those are two pretty obvious tributes. Now, there is another less obvious tribute to Roy O. Disney that you have probably walked by hundreds of times, even got pictures of it, touched it, but you have no idea. I mean, who am I to tell you what you know? You might not have any idea. How about that? That's better. That was very presumptuous of me. Listen, you may have walked by this, have pictures of this thing, and you might have walked by it dozens or hundreds of times and not know it's a tribute to Roy. So what is it? Well, I'll tell you, but I'm going to tell you in a kind of weird roundabout way. Of course I will. This is my show. So in 1975, Emperor Hirohito of Japan, and listen, I probably don't pronounce that correctly, so I apologize to anyone who is Japanese, has Japanese ancestry, or speaks Japanese. I apologize very, very wholeheartedly. Anyway, in 1975, Emperor Hirohito had a 2-week trip to the United States. Now, this was a pretty big deal because just 30 years before, of course, the United States was in a bit of a big war with Japan. So in 1975, Hirohito visits the United States, and one of his stops is Disneyland. Now, apparently the Emperor was a huge, huge fan of Mickey Mouse. There are even pictures of him smiling with Mickey Mouse in Disneyland from that trip. While he was in Disneyland, he purchased a Mickey Mouse watch. And this watch became one of his prized possessions. Now, it's not a rare thing. Mickey Mouse watches were huge from the late 1920s until today. I mean, it's a classic, very classic American timepiece. So Hirohito treasured that watch, and he wore it for the rest of his life, pretty much. It can be seen in all kinds of pictures and videos. Even when he went to formal state events and had formal trips with other leaders of nations, he was wearing the watch. As a matter of fact, in 1979, all of a sudden the watch stopped ticking. This was such a big deal that people in the palace in Japan, they rushed the watch out to those individuals in Japan. And apparently there weren't many of them, but they rushed it out to those who specialized in fixing and repairing American watches. Now, it all turned out to be kind of for nothing because the watch just needed a new battery. But it was such a big deal that it even made Time Magazine's issue in September of 1979. All right, so that's how big of a fan Hirohito was of Mickey Mouse. So when Walt Disney World opened in 1971, there were two major Japanese companies who came out to Florida who were in discussions with the Disney company to build a Disneyland in Tokyo. So talks with the lawyers on both sides began in 1974, and a contract was finally signed in 1979. Anyway, going back to 1971, Emperor Hirohito wanted to congratulate the Disney company and Roy O. Disney on the opening and dedication of Walt Disney World. So he presented Roy O. Disney with a stone lantern. And this stone lantern is a Japanese lantern known as Toro. And traditionally, these lanterns are used to light the way to success and happiness. So from 1971 until 1981, this gift from the emperor, this stone Japanese lantern, sat in the Polynesian, or Disney's Polynesian Village Resort, as it's known now, with no sign, no placard. Guests just walk by it every day, not really realizing the significance. Well, with the opening of Epcot and World Showcase in 1981, it was decided to move this gift, this tribute to Roy O. Disney, to the Japan Pavilion. And that's where it's been ever since. So if you're walking by the Japan Pavilion at World Showcase, on one side you have the big, huge pagoda that's in or right along the water of the World Showcase Lagoon. If you look to the opposite side of where the pagoda is, at the entrance to the pavilion, you will see a grayish white stone lantern. And this lantern is the one that was gifted from Hirohito to Roy O. Disney. You can actually walk up to it. There's a little walkway, and you can actually touch it, put your arm around it, pose for pictures in front of it. This is a significant piece of the history of the Disney company, and it's right out there, right out in the middle of the open. And you have probably, listen, I'm not being presumptuous, but you have probably walked by it tons of times and didn't realize what it was. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Ear to There Disney podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I love the Word of the Week episodes because you can get a lot of info into them in just a few minutes. So I hope you enjoyed it too, and these are a lot of fun to make. I'm doing my best to put these shows out as often as possible. I hope you're enjoying these episodes. And if you are, just do me a favor, share the show with somebody. That's hard to say. Share the show. Share it on social media. On Facebook is a good spot. On Instagram is another good spot. Or just tell your friends, tell your family. Listen, you're doing Zoom calls almost every night. You're talking to your friends. You're talking to your family, your coworkers. You're yelling at your neighbors from across the street. When they're like, I'm bored, tell them about the Ear to There Disney podcast. Listen, we're all looking for entertainment these days. Hopefully it's entertaining. And just remember, there will be more shows coming this week and more episodes, official episodes of the podcast coming this and next week and every week. So until next time, have an amazing day. Have an amazing week. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Thank you again for listening. Bye-bye.